Hello, flower friends. Have you ever made a flower arrangement that didn't turn out exactly as you had hoped? It happens to all of us. My name is Ellen Frost. I'm building a community of flower nerds online by sharing knowledge and connecting people in the flower world. In today's video, I'm going to share some of the most common floral design mistakes, and I'm going to share how you can avoid them so that your flowers look great every time you design. And if you want more floral design tips, tricks, and inspiration sent right to your inbox, check out my flower newsletter. The link's right below. The most common floral design mistake that I see is not properly preparing your stems before you begin designing. People will take their stems and stick them right in their vase without any preparation. So no cleaning, no trimming, no taking the leaves off. And you can see what happens when you do this. This looks terrible, right? This looks like dirty, unprofessional, and just not right. This is a common mistake that I see people make all the time. And the fix is so easy. You just have to take a few minutes to clean your stems, clean and prepare your stems before you put them in the vase. And all that means is stripping any leaves or any foliage that are going to be inside the vase when you put them in. So now you can see when I put my stem in, it's a lot cleaner. And when you look inside the vase, it doesn't look so messy and gross. So again, I'm taking all of the leaves off of the bottom of my stem, anything that's going to be inside the vase. And every flower is different. You'll have to just practice to see which you can do with your hands, like I am doing, or which you might need to trim off with your clippers. So either way, either with your hand or with your clippers, make sure you get off all of those leaves so that when you put your stems in, everything inside the vase is nice and clean. So just this simple step of cleaning your stems and preparing your stems is not only going to make the vase arrangement look better, but it's also going to keep the water clean, which is going to make your flowers last longer. The last thing you want is for your flowers to be dirty and get bacteria in them from the leaves and make your flowers die faster. The next design mistake that I see people make all the time, and there's a really simple fix to it, is getting obsessed with one side of your arrangement. So designing a front-facing arrangement, that there is a time and a place for that. If you have an arrangement that's going to be on a sidebar or something with a wall up against it, that's fine. But if you're going to place an arrangement on, say, a coffee table or your dining room table, you really want it to be seen from all sides. And you can see right now I'm designing just from my own view, front facing, and you can see that the back is pretty boring. So all of the stems, all of the blooms are facing forward. So what you want to do is, as you're designing, you want to be turning your arrangement as you go. So don't get fixated on one side. Turn and design with all of the sides in mind. And if you can't remember to do that, using a Lazy Susan is one tool that you can use to help you in your turning. Another common floral design mistake that people often make is to cut their flowers all at the same level. So not having any variation in height. There's very little visual interest in making a flower arrangement where all of the flowers are at the same height. We have to remember that when we're designing from the top down. So where we may be seeing all of the blooms right here, people who are sitting at eye level are looking for blooms at their eye level. So if all of the flowers are on one level, all up here where we're seeing them, there's not a lot of visual interest along the eye level here, but also this starts to feel like, I always think of it as like an umbrella, right? It's like this dome shaped, everything at one length. So the trick to making that not be a problem is to vary the heights of your flowers. And I'll show you a really simple trick on how to measure how your flowers are going to go in your arrangement. So when you're beginning flower arranging, you may not know how to eyeball where to cut your flowers so that you can vary the stem lengths. So one trick that you can do is to put your arrangement sort of at the edge of your table and then take the flower that you're trying to measure and put it off the table so that you can adjust the height. So I'm looking at, I want the flower to be here, and you can see this is giving me a lot of variation in height. I'm just going to take my flower, hang it off the side of my table so that I can see exactly where I want the bloom to be, and then I'm going to trim, put my flowers in. You can see already that the variation in height is starting to change the look of the arrangement. This is starting to feel a little more dynamic, a little more interesting, because you're starting to see some of the blooms really showing off more in the design. You can do that with a bunch of your flowers. You don't have to have just line flowers popping out. You can make your tulips a little bit taller, like here, so that they show off. What you want to do is create more interest, more movement in your design by varying the heights of these flowers. One of the most common and challenging floral design mistakes that I see people making, and I still do this all the time, is overstuffing your design. So a lot of times when we're designing, the flowers are so beautiful that we want to use all of them in the design that we're making. And so we keep adding and keep adding and keep adding and keep stuffing until there really isn't any more room in the arrangement. The flowers start to feel crowded. They are not given enough room to actually be seen. You can't really even see what flowers are in here. The other thing we have to remember is that flowers are dynamic. They don't stay the same way throughout the arrangement. These flowers are going to open, and as you can see, if we have all of these flowers squished right here together, when they open, they're going to be bumping up against each other, bruising each other. There's not going to be enough room for them to really show off. But if you want really an in-depth look at overstuffing, I have an entire free guide called How to Stop Overstuffing. If you feel like you've overstuffed, remove a few stems, especially ones that feel very crowded, and make a little more room in your design. Don't be afraid of negative space in your design. So that's space that's like between each flower. Negative space is not bad. It is a way for you to create a resting place for your eye when you're looking at a design. So, I mean, just that, I took out, I don't know, half a dozen or more stems. You could make an entirely separate arrangement with this number of stems. So if you feel like you are overstuffing, stop, remove a few stems, make some space between each of the flowers so that they don't feel so crowded. Another common mistake is thinking that your flower arrangement can just be made and then left alone and not maintained. So flowers are going to be changing as your flower arrangement sits over the next few days. Flowers are going to open, they're going to close, every flower has a different vase life. So some flowers are going to start to deteriorate while others are still looking great. So if you ignore your flower arrangement after you make it, the tendency is that it's going to start to look bad fast. So to maintain your flowers, there's a couple easy things that you can do. One is anytime you see a bad bloom, you can either trim off that one single bloom, or if that whole stem is starting to look bad, just take that out and throw it in the trash. What that's going to do is help keep the water clean so that it's not creating bacteria in the vase. You don't want to have any bacteria inside your vase. The other thing you can do is make sure to take your flowers out of their vase every single day and change the water. That means dump the water out, clean out your vase. So use, actual soap and water to clean out the vase to make sure there's no bacteria, and then refill it with clean water. And then every 2 or 3 days, you can take your whole arrangement out and just give it a little trim, maybe a 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch, or 1/2 inch. And what that's going to do is create a nice fresh stem so that your flowers can take up water. This is going to help maintain your flowers over the long term. It's definitely going to increase the vase life so that your flowers continue to look good for a long time. If you have made any of these floral design mistakes, you're not alone. But now you know all of the tips and tricks to avoid these mistakes so that your flowers look good every time you design. So if you found this video helpful, give it a like. And also make sure you subscribe so that you can get more videos like this one. If you really want to get nerdy, check out my flower newsletter, and the link is below.